Jessica and I work at Barrio. I'm also an illustration major, and one of my favorite things to draw is portraits, so that's what I'm going to teach you to do today. So whenever you're drawing a portrait, you're going to want to make sure that you have a reference photo, and it doesn't matter if you printed it out from Google, you're using a picture you took on your phone. Anything should work. You just want to make sure that you're looking at something rather than going off of the knowledge in your brain. So once you have your reference photo, you're going to start out with very lightly using quick, short strokes to draw a circle. And this circle is going to be the top half, I guess, almost, of your head. So this is going to be from basically your mouth to the top of your head. So once you have a circle kind of traced out like that, you're going to figure out which way your model is looking. And so my model is looking right down the middle, almost. So you're going to take a line, and you don't want it to be straight because your face is not straight, it's pretty round. So take this line, and this is your midline, sorry. It's gonna be the part between your eyes the most, the centermost part of your face. So lightly curving that, I'm gonna take it almost down right the middle because that's where my model's looking. If your model's looking more to the side, you would put it over this way or to the left more. And you wanna take this line about 1/3 outside of the circle. That's gonna be your jaw. So at the bottom of the line, you can draw another line cutting it off, and that's going to be your chin. You want to take the most time in the beginning to set up your proportions because it's not going to look right no matter how many details you put in if your proportions are wrong. So you start at the bottom of the face here, and you're going to connect it to the circle up here, and that's going to be your cheeks. Some people have more thin cheeks than others or chubbier cheeks than others. So if they're chubbier, you're gonna make it more round. If they have a thin face, you're gonna make it more of a straighter line. So I'm gonna connect that, and that's 1/2 of a face. So then on the other side, I'm gonna take it almost all the way to the end of the circle, but not all the way. And when I get it to I guess is the length I'd like it, I take it and I go straight up, and that's the part that connects your ear to your face. So for your ear, it's going to be in the same spot almost that your eyes are. The top of your ear meets with your eyes, and a good way to remember where to put those is that the eyes are in the half point of your head. And so to take this, for me, it helps me to put a pencil down and find the exact middle of the pencil. So my eyes would be right about here. And now keeping the roundness in your head of the circle that you just wrote, the circle that you just drew, you're gonna kind of trace it around the circle. It helps if you think of a beach ball or a basketball to kind of draw those lines round. So that's gonna be there. And then see the top of my ears here, so I'm gonna leave a mark there so I know that that's where that goes. And then my eyes are gonna be right around here. This is gonna be the center part of your nose. And to find where your nose goes, you're gonna go about halfway from here to here. So for me, that's right about there. And that's the bottom part of your nose. That's where your nostrils are, all that fun stuff. So then for the mouth, you wanna do the same thing, halfway between the bottom of the nose and your chin. So you're gonna find that, and you can simply just put a line there. This is gonna let you know where everything is before you go and put the details in. That way, if you need to make a change, you're not erasing all of your hard work. So the mouth is here. So you can go back, trace your lines if you can't see them. Mouth is here. To make the top lip, you're just gonna shade in a little bit, just to show you that that's where the top lip is. You wanna put shading there because there's actually a shadow on that part of your mouth. And I'm just putting that there so that I can remember kind of their gesture of their mouth, if they're smiling or frowning, and then just remember that that place goes there. So the next step is to draw your eyes. And this is a little bit tricky because you kind of want to go with the eye socket. So to do that, you follow the inside of the nose, which usually comes about right there on the face. Maybe move that over a little bit. And then you have the top part, which is where your eyebrow forms. And you want to remember to do all of this light because there is going to be a lot of erasing once you are towards the end. You're going to get rid of all these lines. They're just to kind of help guide you. So to find the end of your eyes, you're going to go about halfway between the center line and the edge of your head. And I'm going to draw it the same way I drew my center line. Once I do it on this side, I'm going to want to do it on that side. This is just going to help with the symmetry of the face and making sure the features all look alike. So once I have that, I know that my eyes are around this area and they're around this area. Now my eyes are not going to be that big. A really common mistake is that people draw the eyes way too big for the head, and that gives them kind of a cartoony look instead of a realistic look. So once you have that, you can bring it all the way down here, and that's going to be where your nose is. It doesn't look like a person exactly yet, but that's just because you're setting up, you know, the stereotypical features of people, you know? So you're going to take this, and I usually draw a circle from where my mouth is to where the top of the eyes are. And that's going to be where your ear goes. So once you have all this, you want to remember that the mouth, the corners of your mouth meet up with your pupils. So however long I make my mouth, I'm going to want to make my pupils exactly that, except higher. So I'm drawing a girl. So her lips are a little bit bigger. So I'm going to draw that just to get in the full size. It's easier if you just shade lightly because you can keep shading until you get the state you want. To make the bottom lip, hers comes out a little bit farther, so I'm going to go down a little bit, and I just make that shadow right below the bottom lip, that kind of pouty area. And that's going to be how you get your mouth. To do that, I kind of shade in. They're going to have some wrinkles around here, so I'm going to shade those in just as a reminder, or smile marks. They're not always wrinkles. Another helpful tip is to frame the hair earlier. So since I am drawing a girl, I'm gonna start at the roots and kind of just make my way down her face. And you want to use loose strokes for this because hair is very flowy, and if you use choppy strokes, it's not gonna look like hair. So I'm just drawing kind of the outline for this. I don't want to shade it in yet, do anything like that. I'm just simply drawing the space that it's taking up. And it wraps around her neck a little bit, so you want to make sure to put that in there. And then same thing for this side, you go up to her hairline. This side comes down a little bit. It kind of covers her eye socket there, and then it just wraps around and frames her face. If you have trouble with hair, you can wait to do it at the end. I just do it because it helps me kind of frame what I'm working on and set boundaries to it. So her hair curls down here, so I'm just going to do lots of waves coming out of themselves. And then her neck ends right about here, so these are going to be where I'm putting her collarbones. Mostly for the neck and the collarbones, if they're shoulders, you kind of just use spacing and measure it. So her collarbone actually comes out to about here because of the way she is sitting. So her shoulder would be right there. And then her other shoulder you can't see because of the hair. So now that you kind of know which gesture she's using and where she's facing, you can continue to draw her face, and that will help with the way her pupils are facing, kind of the direction of everything on her face. So I'm gonna go in and start on the right side with her eyes. And to do that, you kind of make almond shapes. So that's gonna be the top of my eye right there. And then I wanna get the top of my eye on the other side before I go to the bottoms, just to make sure they're the same shape, same size, all that. So I'm gonna go back in there with that almost almond shape. And my model actually has pretty large eyes, so they might look a little bit big and cartoony, although that's usually not the goal you want. And if you feel like one of your lines are off, that's fine. You can erase, and if something looks better to you, you should definitely trust that. So there's my little top half of the eye. And I'm just gonna use the bottom that I got from my eye socket to create the bottom part. So now that I have that on both sides, I'm gonna look in which way she's looking. And she's looking almost right at the camera. So I'm gonna take these pupils, and pupils are perfect circles. So you wanna make sure that you remember that. And I'm just gonna shade them in completely, just so I know that's the pupils, that's where she's looking. She looks a little crazy right now, but we'll fix that at the end. And then for her nose, you can usually always see nostrils, and they usually go up in a formation like that, almost like an upside down heart. So that's what we're gonna do for her here. Obviously, if your model's looking on the side, it's gonna kind of take a different shape. But if you really just look at the shadows versus the lights in your portrait, that's gonna be what tells you where your nostrils are, where your cheekbones are, all that. So once you have kind of the basic shapes of her whole face, you're gonna wanna go in and shade where there's darker areas or shadows. So my light source is coming from my left side, which means all my shadows are gonna be on my right side here. So to do that, I'm gonna take her cheekbone, which is right about here, and just bring it down. And if you know anything about makeup, you just kind of apply it to the cheekbones for that contour. And a lot of the surface that are facing downwards also get a shadow. So right under your nose will get a shadow. The chin gets a shadow, but you want to keep the chin as a circle almost, shade it like a sphere. A lot of things on your face are not as flat or as straight as they seem. So you can play with that. And then you can either take a Q-tip or you can take your finger, there's blending stumps, and you just blend it in until you get your desired color. And the further back it goes, the darker. You just want to keep putting layers until you get proper shading. It looks like there's an actual light source. So now she's starting to actually look a bit more like a person and not a crazy cartoon. The upper eyelids, you can trace a little darker. This is more, you're just gonna keep going back and forth and finding what makes her look more human to you, or him if you choose to draw a male model. So I wanna go in and make all those areas darker. I wanna trace her pupils. I might add some shading to her eyelids. And a lot of this, you just wanna keep looking back and forth at your reference photo and your actual drawing. It's not gonna look exactly like your reference photo at first, but that's why you keep blending and making adjustments as you go. To make their eyebrows, pretty easy. Follow the nose, a little bit above the eye. Follow the eye socket that you drew previously. Hopefully you didn't erase it already like me. And there's her eyebrows. You want to use short but heavy strokes for this one so that you get an actual outline defined look. And you do the same thing there. If you just want to draw a few lines and then shade it in like that, you can see that that also works and it doesn't look bad. So then once you kind of feel like your shading is good around the mouth, the cheeks, the shaded side, you're gonna want to go in and go to your lighter side and add, does she have any bags under her eyes? There's usually some shading from the nostrils. So I'm gonna go in on this side and make it darker because I didn't realize that that shading was there earlier. So then you just go back like that, add the shading you need. This whole side of her nose is darker. And then you just take your finger, Q-tip, whatever you have, you can blend it. You can also use paper towels if you don't want to get your fingers dirty. And she has a little bit of a shadow right under her eye and right at the top of her forehead. So as you can see, the more you shade, it's gonna look a lot more like a person. At first, you're gonna have a weird outline that looks like a robot, but if you just keep with it, you can usually shade over these lines, or once you feel comfortable enough, you can erase them. You can also erase them before you start your shading, if that makes you more comfortable. I know you don't wanna erase all the shading you just did, so you just do that. And then you just have a plain face. And then I do really light kind of just scribbles around where I want shadows because I'm gonna blend it out. You don't want to make too heavy of a mark because then you're gonna have outlines where your shadows are and your shadows actually blend in well with your face. So since she's a girl, her lips are kind of bright. So if colors are brighter, you just go in and make them a little bit darker. So now you can see her lips that she has makeup on. Another place to put a circle or a sphere is right the ball of your nose. That's gonna help it have that rounded shape that you have at the end of your nose and also make that highlight right around here. Okay, so just keep going back and forth and shading and it should come all together. It's really just a matter of patience and observation. Okay, and then I'm gonna stop shading there just because I got that point across. But obviously I would keep going in, make this side a little bit darker, stuff like that. But I'm gonna get into her hair. Hair is a little bit hard to draw because you don't wanna draw all the individual strands, but you do wanna show the individuality. So a really good way of doing it is finding the darker parts, which are usually the roots, and the underneath side near the neck here. So I'm just gonna take it. It's important that you follow the direction of the hair at least, because say if I'm going like that, my hair's gonna look crazy. It's gonna come out the side of her head. And her ear is actually covered up by her hair. So even though I know where that is, I don't need it. So I'm just gonna keep drawing. This is a fold. So underneath of the fold is gonna be where I'm putting my shadow because all of this hair up here is reflecting my light. So that is gonna be the reflection. You can blend your hair if you want to, or you can go back and forth like this. Another easy way to do it is just go in real dark in one area and then blend it. And then you can do your hair that way and just add individual strands where there's light is usually where it shows the most. So right here I have a highlight, so I'll give you an example. You're gonna get real dark down here at the bottom because it's curving away from the light. But right here is where all the light's connecting. So I might just add a few strands just so you can see the direction of the hair. And then right down here, her neck and the rest of her hair is actually covering the light, so her hair is gonna be darker. And her hair is a little bit wavy, so I'm just keeping that in mind as I'm twirling it around almost. When you're drawing hair, you can keep kind of like sheets and fabric in mind because they do move and flow in the same way. So that could be a good reminder. You just want to do that. You can blend. Another really good strategy I like to use when I'm doing longer charcoal pieces or drawing pieces is I will take a white colored pencil or a white charcoal pencil, and anywhere that there's a highlight, I'll make white. So you don't want to go overboard with this. I usually do it around here on the nose, and then that little circular part where you usually get a highlight there, and anywhere else on the face that looks out of the ordinary bright. That usually just makes them pop. But you don't have to do that with all of them. It really just makes the highlights pop out, gives it more of a lifelike look. But and you just keep doing all that hair. And you want to just constantly look back and forth between your drawing and your reference photo. It doesn't have to be right exact, but it does help just to make everything make sense. And then you start back up with the roots on the other side. There's no exact way to do hair or direction. You don't have to start anywhere. I start at the roots just because it is where the hair grows out of. So everything that flows to me makes sense that it would flow out of the roots. So you just keep blending. Obviously down under her neck, she's gonna have some shadows. So you just wanna follow those. Really look at your reference photo. Men, you're gonna notice an Adam's apple right here, but with women, obviously you don't notice that often. So I'm not gonna draw that. I'm just gonna add some shading in. Since it's the bottom of my portrait, I don't need to make it real nice or pretty. I just need to do enough that it shows and frames my portrait. So this is her neck. And we can see that her hair kind of does come down and meets in the middle. So you don't see her shirt or anything. It's just all hair here. But you do see her collarbones. So I'm gonna draw those in. And just continue to shape. The more you do this, the more comfortable you'll get with what exactly goes where, you know, proportions, how much to shade. But obviously, reference photos make a world of difference. And you just don't want to be too harsh on anything because skin doesn't have lines on it where it goes from light to dark. You just want to make really light gestures and then blend. Light gestures, blend, and just keep going back to where it's needed. If you need to, you can always come back to it later. Sometimes your brain just can't think of any more information to put down, so I know I often have to take breaks when I'm drawing. So I just want to keep going, and anywhere that's darker, I want to constantly shade. Just lightly though. You can always put more down, but it's hard once you put too much to take it back up. You just keep playing with it, and you should get a portrait somewhat like this. You know, you can add more shading to the shoulders, but I'm content with just her hair. I don't want to take away from that and it framing her face, so I'm not going to shade in my shoulders too much. Just a little bit. And that's my portrait. So I hope it's easy for you guys to follow along. I hope that it was helpful, and thank you guys for watching.